So, welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Teachers Podcast. With me today is Armando Hart. Armando is an author, a youth mentor, a medicine man. Armando and his partner Eve hold gatherings that include Temazcal, breathwork, sound, and drum medicine. Armando, it's an honor to have you on today.
Thank you for having me, Peter. I appreciate it. And I'm honored to be on your platform. And I'm excited to share my journey.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so some of the things that we're going to cover today are Armando's awakening journey, how Armando and his partner Eve came together and started working together. We're going to talk about Armando's book. It's called The Hart Method, Hart. Also about a technique that Armando developed in the book called Put Your Foot Down, and with the Olympics, um, how Armando was very close to getting into the Olympics. Um, we'll talk about conscious fatherhood, a summer camp for teenage boys that Armando has coming up, and potentially relationships to plant medicines. So, Armando, we got a lot to cover, and we'll see what Spirit wants us to really pull through today. So, um,
Yeah. I mean, it's good to have a goal and a vision of what we want to talk about, right?
for
But
sure.
it's also very important to be open to spirit and where spirit leads us, which is for me, like that's just a reflection of how my life has been. So I'm excited to share that.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, so I'd love to hear about your awakening journey. How did it all start for you?
Wow. My awakening journey. Um, I grew up in Long Beach, California, and I'm first generation American. So my parents were both from Michoacan, Mexico.
Hmm.
So I was their first child, and I was very quiet as a boy growing up. I was labeled shy, timid in school, not because I was shy and timid, but because I didn't speak. English was my second language.
Hmm.
So I didn't know how to express myself. And I had a lot in my head. I had a lot of questions about existence, about life. Why are we here? Where did we come from? Where are we going? I mean, I was 4 or 5 years old and having these thoughts. And one of the most powerful things that my parents did was every time I asked a question that they couldn't answer, questions about life, questions about existence, they said, I don't know. I don't know.
Right.
That to me was very powerful because it left an opening for me.
Hmm.
If they would have told me, "Oh, this is why you're here. You're here to be saved. You're here to um, no matter what," right? They didn't. They
Hmm.
didn't. They didn't plant any of that. They didn't condition me in that way.
Hmm.
So it left the door open for me to discover it on my own. So one of the ways that I discovered, um, I guess, my existence, I guess, my myself, my essence, was through physical movement. Because when I was in school, the way that I connected with my classmates, the way that I made friends, was to be the fastest boy in school, was to
Hmm.
kick the ball the furthest. Once I did that, that allowed me to connect with other kids,
Hmm.
to make friends, to make connections. So that was the beginning, I feel, of my awakening. And that's a big part of my work, the physical body, physical movement, to be really connected to ourselves because we are spiritual beings, but we are in a physical body.
Hmm.
So I grew up with that mindset. All through high school, I was very big in sports. I went on to college. I ran track in college. One of the most powerful things that I think I did was to go out of my comfort zone. That's the way that I got to college. I didn't have the grades, but I did the hard, difficult tasks to get into college. Um, looked for different programs that I would allow me to get into college, to be on the track team. I had to walk on. I had to make phone calls. I had to go to the coach's office that was never there and sit and study next to his office to finally catch him. So I did all the uncomfortable things.
Hmm.
And because of that, I was able to get on the track team. And I was the record holder at Cal State Long Beach in the 100 meters and 200 meters for 12 years.
Wow.
And because of my dual citizenship, I was able to represent Mexico in international competitions. And in 1996, I qualified for the Olympic Games.
Wow.
Well, here's the beginning of my, well, not the beginning, because I feel like the beginning of my awakening happened when I was much younger, but this is how it started to develop and open up,
Hmm.
was through tragedy, through through dark experiences, because 2 months before the Olympic Games I tore my hamstring,
Hmm.
and that was very hard on me,
Hmm.
physically, emotionally. um, and I was in a dark place because growing up with that dream of being an Olympian, um, and to see it just go away in millisecond
Talk about
with
an
that
ego
injury.
death, right?
Right. Talking about ego death, definitely, because I had developed this identity of who I thought I was and what I was here to do.
Hmm.
Right. So once that was taken away, like I said, I went into a depression, went to a very dark place. I remember sitting down at home thinking, what got me this far? I mean, yes, I didn't make it to the Olympics, but I was 2 months away. I was there. I had my airplane ticket. I had everything. What got me this far was going out of my comfort zone.
Hmm.
So then that's when I started to want to get into like personal development. I started reading books, different kinds of books about spirituality. Um, and I got this opportunity to train in Houston, Texas, with a coach named Tom Tayez. He trained Olympic gold medalists. He was one of the best coaches at the time, and he said, "Come over to Houston, and I'll train you.
Hmm.
You don't have to pay me; just find a place to live."
Hmm.
At that time, I had a '65 red Mustang, and I decided in the middle of winter to drive my red Mustang from California to Texas. That's how uncomfortable that was. But because I've had this idea of going out of my comfort, and the reason why I got this far was because I went out of my comfort, I decided to move to Houston, Texas, and it was quite a journey driving in the middle of winter in a '65 red Mustang through
Yeah.
Texas.
Uh-huh.
So so then I get there, and I was already physically traumatized, emotionally traumatized, and in one of the trainings, he comes over and talks to me and he says, "You have great potential. All you have to do is put your foot down. What is all that mumbo jumbo you're doing?" He called it mumbo jumbo, all these different kind of drills that I was taught to do and all these techniques. And he goes, "It's really simple. It's not that difficult. Just put your foot down." He goes, and then he pointed at an 11-year-old boy running. He goes, "Just like him." He goes, "I'm not even coaching him. I just let him be what he is."
Hmm.
Right. So at that time, I was reading a book on personal development, and there was a segment that talked about the power of putting your foot down.
Do you remember what book it was?
I do not remember what book it was, but it
Okay.
was like this little segment, and I had a few books at the time, and it was just a little segment in the book that said the power of putting your foot down. So this book is telling me to put my foot down in life, to create my boundaries,
Hmm.
to to be centered, to own my choices, to have ownership of myself. And then this coach is telling me, in order to move faster and move better and more efficient, with more power and more speed, I have to put my foot down.
Hmm.
So that to me opened up a whole world of possibilities. I understood that there was more to my existence. There was more to me than just trying to be an Olympian.
The
And
synchronicities aligned, right?
yeah, the synchronicities aligned. And I also felt when he told me that, put your foot down, I thought about a ball going down. He goes, in order for the ball, why does a ball bounce up? Well, the ball bounces up, I said, because it hit the ground. He goes, yeah, but why did it hit the ground? Because it was thrown down, right?
Hmm.
So there's these balance of forces, and I saw myself as that ball going down.
Hmm.
That was me, right? So I was down, and just that little insight helped me understand that I might be down, but I will come up.
Exactly.
So I started to move my body in that way. I started to embody this duality of forces,
Hmm.
the yin and the yang,
Hmm.
right? So I started to feel more in my body. And because I took that insight into how I live my life, I started to feel more connected to life, more connected to my relationships, because I started to put my foot down with my boundaries.
Hmm. Right.
And so that was a huge part of my awakening. That was the beginning of so many possibilities that came through that, because soon after that, I had this very powerful dream. Um, and this was probably late, maybe 2000 or 1990, a couple of years after that.
Hmm.
I um I was going out, and I wasn't living the life that I felt I wanted to live. Going out to bars, just you know, just a normal day to day, going out on the weekends, right? Going to work, going out on the weekends. And I remember going to a bar with my friends, and I get to the bar, and this was like about 8 p.m., 8:30 p.m. And I said, you know what? I'm going home. I went home. I didn't have anything to drink. I didn't take any kind of substances. I went home to my apartment, and I laid down and I closed my eyes, and I wasn't even sleepy. As soon as I shut my eyes, I felt this vibration
Hmm.
and this humming, and I couldn't move.
Oh, wow.
So fear started to creep up, and I was like, what's happening? What's going on? I couldn't open my eyes, I couldn't move, and the
Hmm.
vibration started getting more intense,
Hmm.
and the humming started to get louder, to the point where I thought I was dying. So I kept resisting it. Like I'm like, no, this can't this is not how I die. Like this is it. I'm like I'm dying. I'm dying. I don't know. Maybe 15 seconds went by after that, but it felt like a long time. Where I finally got to the point where I accepted what was happening. Like I surrendered to it. I said, okay, if I'm dying, I accept it.
Hmm.
I let go. I let go. And as soon as I let go, and as soon as I surrendered, I shot up from my body, way up like a rocket. And I went up, and I remember grabbing something, some kind of light. I don't know what it was, or torch. And then I came back down. And as I was coming back down, I could see the city, but it didn't look like the same city that I was in. It looked different.
Hmm.
It didn't look like Long Beach.
Right.
And so I came back down, and as soon as I entered my body, I shot up like in a sweat. And I remember texting one of my friends. I said, I don't know what just happened, but everything has changed. And everything did change after that, because I started the next day. I wanted to look into meditation classes. I wanted to read more books. I wanted to expand myself in a deeper way. I wanted to be more spiritual. I felt like a completely different person.
Hmm.
And I found this place called the Mystic Garden.
Well, let me stop you there for a second. So,
Yeah.
knowing what you know now, uh, there it sounds like there was an aspect of astral projection happening in that moment, right?
Yes, definitely.
Hmm.
Definitely. Yeah, at the time I did not quite understand what was happening,
Hmm.
but it's that soon after that I started to read more about it, and it was definitely an astral projection.
Hmm.
Um It could have been also, what do they call it? Sometimes a walk-in,
Right.
where a higher part of yourself comes in,
Hmm. Or different,
um,
or like a different soul
or a
enters
different
the
soul,
body. Yeah.
different soul enters the body. But I do believe that a higher part of me entered
Hmm.
at that moment, a higher part of myself. And I feel like I part of me feels like I already knew this was going to happen.
Hmm.
Like spiritually, like before I came into this lifetime, like, okay, this is going to happen when this happens, right? So
Hmm.
like a part of me felt that, so I was at peace with it, I was at ease with it. Just the only time that I feared it was when it started to happen, like
Right.
during the actual vibration. There was a lot of fear in that. But once it happened, I started to really feel good about it. That in combination with my experience in Houston with that coach of putting my foot down, you know, and I'm writing at this time, all these ideas, all these insights, that eventually became a book. But going back to the Mystic Garden, that was a place here in Long Beach where they do meditation and different types of gatherings.
Hmm.
And I went there and I saw this woman walk into Mystic Garden. I was outside helping them to clear out the space because we were closing. And I saw her go in and I said, "Who is that?"
Hmm.
This woman looked colorful. Like she was like a walking like a human unicorn.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, what is that? Who is that?
Right.
And that was Eve.
Hmm.
And she eventually became my wife.
Hmm.
So
Beautiful.
my awakening is everything, because it just opened up a world of possibilities for me, and it just opened up new pathways that I'm still living to this day, you know,
Hmm.
like the that experience of just connecting with, making friends by using physical activities like running, and then going out of my comfort zone, and getting hurt, getting injured, like you said, the ego death, right?
Hmm.
um, all that has been a huge part of my awakening, which I'm still living to this day.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What a powerful journey you were on. And I'm just curious, rewinding it a little bit back to that experience on the couch, right? Where you astral projected, where did you feel an energy shoot up your spine at all, or was it just like a vibration?
It was a vibration, that started, yeah, like it definitely was a whole body vibration. It was all over, not just my spine, but it was, and it felt like it was every cell of my
Wow.
body.
Wow.
Yeah, it was not just the spine, like, but it was like everything.
Hmm.
And there was fear and terror, but at the same time there was this like amazing, um, pleasure in it at the same time. It's
Hmm.
hard to explain.
Hmm.
And the surrendering part was, I mean, once we surrender to anything, you know, like there's a freedom in that.
Hmm.
Like once I accepted death, like, yeah, I accept death.
Hmm.
Okay, I let go. Right? I think that's when we open ourselves up to what spirit wants us to experience.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. I think that for a lot of people, one of their biggest fears is death.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
then when
yeah.
when we face that, it's like, okay, what there's nothing to fear now because I've faced the deepest fear there is, you know?
Yeah, I really think like that's the underlying fear we have as a humanity, not knowing like what is death and what comes after that, right?
Hmm.
And like as children, I think as children we have those questions, like what is this? Why are we here? What are we doing, right?
Hmm.
Um, and in my experience, those questions were part of my intention.
Hmm.
Like those questions that I had became my intention to want to discover that. What is it, right? And but there's different. I feel like there's different pathways to get to that. My journey was through physical movement, right?
Hmm.
Through the body, very corporal, very physical. But I feel that, you know, we all have an opportunity for that. Whether you're a chef, whether you're a mechanic, right? Like there's divinity in it.
Hmm.
And that's why it's so important to live a life with intention, because if you live a life with intention, no matter what you do, you're going to get an opportunity to grow, or
Absolutely.
not necessarily grow, but to come back to yourself, come back to your essence, right?
Hmm.
Um and that's why I think it's important to overcome the thoughts that we have in our head that keep us away from making the choices that are hard, that are difficult, that keep us away from dying, right?
Hmm.
From letting go of that ego, and not necessarily letting go of the ego, but just um, becoming aware of it, and understanding that, you know, sometimes the ego doesn't serve us, and sometimes it does. We need it, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it's there for certain things and not for others, you know, and the topic of death is so interesting because in so many cultures, especially in South America, there's, at least in the past, the tribes would come together when somebody would die. They would all take some sort of psychedelic and help that soul cross over.
Right.
Have you heard of that before?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And tribes understand that. They know the power of that. They know the
Hmm.
power of experiencing death because, and speaking of that, like, what are near death experiences? Why do people change and come back different from a near death experience? You know, what happens there? and
Right.
and it's and it's and it's the same thing that these tribes are doing, but they're doing it intentionally.
Hmm. Right. Right.
Right, they're doing it with intention, knowing that they're going to come back and they're going to be more connected to themselves and to our tribe,
Hmm.
right? Because it's not just about the self, it's about the tribe and
Hmm.
the environment and how it serves how it serves all of it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, I think in American society, at least, we're taught that death is something to really mourn and be really sad about, but in reality, it's just a continuation. We're eternal beings, and we're in Earth school right now, is what it seems like to me. And it's kind of like a graduation potentially for some people, but for others, it's they're going to come back and learn other lessons that their soul feels like it needs, you know?
Yeah, soon after that I started reading books on lucid dreaming.
Mm.
That was a big part of my journey, is I wanted to learn how to lucid dream because I'm a big dreamer. I
Hmm.
love dreams. Dreams are a huge part of my of my journey, and I wanted to master that. I wanted to really go deep with that.
Hmm.
And I remember one of my most powerful lucid dreams was when I was completely lucid. I was hiking, and there was so much joy knowing that I'm experiencing this hike right now, but I know that I'm at home sleeping.
Mm.
It opened up so many, like, there was no fear anymore. Fear
Hmm.
was gone.
Hmm.
Fear was gone. Like, I had no fear of anything. I had no fear of snakes. I had no fear of anything. And how I ended that lucid dream was I climbed up onto a rock and I looked below, and it was like there was no floor, there was no ground. And I stood on top of this rock and I took a deep breath and I said, I'm going to jump.
Wow.
I'm going to jump.
Hmm.
What do I have to lose?
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
Nothing. There's nothing to lose. I wasn't going to die.
Hmm.
Right. So I still remember that moment, standing on top of this rock, fully lucid, fearless, and not knowing if I was going to hit ground, not knowing anything, and just taking a dive. And I remember just being completely free for about 10 seconds. And then I finally, I don't know what I hit, but I woke up into into this life.
Wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
so you did wake up as soon as you hit something, and that's
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. And there's part of me that I feel that I created the floor. Like I felt like, okay, I want it to come now.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like 10 seconds. Okay, that I'm like, okay, that's good. Yeah, okay. Three, two, boom. Right? Like
Right.
I felt like I was still the creator of that.
Mm.
Like
Interesting.
I still had agency in some weird way, even if I was completely free and just free falling. Like I feel like I still had agency. I could still create the floor, and I could still make it appear when I wanted to.
You know, this brings up a story really a quick story. I had been working in physical therapy and I met this woman who had been in a coma for 3 months. And I had met her when she was just starting her spiritual journey, and she told me, she said, I vividly remember being in a different body, being on this community land with this beautiful forest, with all people that I don't know in this life. And she said she lived out a whole beautiful life in that 3 months, quote unquote, right? Because time to me, I don't think is what we think it is. And then she came back and she had lived this whole other life in those 3 months, and then she came back into her body out of the coma. And to me, that was fascinating.
That
That
is
that
fascinating.
that number one, she remembers that whole lifetime. Number
Wow.
two, that she came back and remembers all of this lifetime. And then number three, like how does that connect to the dream world, right? Like
Right.
how is that space that she went to less real than here?
Right.
Or is it that her soul just was barely anchored into her body and went into another body for that experience?
Right. That is amazing. And I mean, there's Buddhists that can do that,
Hmm.
right? There's Buddhists that can experience lifetimes by going into a deep meditative state.
Absolutely.
That is incredible. I mean, I one of the powerful medicines that I received from lucid dreaming was when I was able to do it, it just made me less fear. I had less fear, because there was moments when I avoided climbing up to a rock. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm saying as in in this reality, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like I had the opportunity to climb up into a rock and just take that dive, right? So I had moments where I that fear would stop me,
Hmm.
but the lucid dream helped me to understand, like, hey, what do you got to lose?
Hmm. Right.
What, you gonna die?
Right. Right.
Are you
What's the
gonna
worst
die?
thing that could happen? You could die.
Right? Maybe,
Right.
maybe, right? But more than likely I wasn't gonna die because, you know, taking that dive meant maybe, changing careers, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Or moving, like, you and your move, right?
Hmm.
Those are you're taking a leap. And sometimes, we let our mind and our thoughts and our fear stop us from taking that leap. Um, you know, and I've also had the fear of, I mean, I had the fear of marriage.
Hmm.
I had, as a man, um, I grew up thinking that, in order to be the best at what you do, you can't have any ties, no connections, right? You had to be so disciplined in your craft that you couldn't be married, you couldn't have children.
Hmm.
So, you know, um, really developing and cultivating a relationship with Eve was a huge accomplishment for me because that was a big rock that I allowed myself to climb and to take that dive. And it's one of the most beautiful things that I have ever done because we have a son.
Hmm.
and You know, our son, as a father, I just can't imagine my life without my son. Like
Mm,
I have this deep, and I don't even know if you call it love, but it's just like, my God, like I can't imagine my life without this little guy.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I mean, it helped me overcome a lot of fears, a lot of obstacles, a lot of barriers, a lot of conditioning, a lot of programming that I had. And it really affected the choices that I made, the choices that I didn't make because of that. And but yeah, coming together, allowing myself to go there and to develop a relationship with Eve, to create something together. Both of our hearts coming together, both of our visions coming together. She always had this vision of the drum, of
Mm,
us really connecting to the drum and drum medicine.
hmm.
Um, and I always loved music. Music was my first love, actually. You know, I know I told the story how I was very into sports, but music was my first love. My first gift was a drum set that my godfather had given me.
That's awesome.
It was a drum set. I was so happy and I would play it. And one day I come home and my parents are like, "We have bad news." I'm like, "What happened?" He goes, "Someone stole your drum set."
Oh no.
I'm like, "Who would do that?
Right.
Who would steal a drum set? Did they
Mhm.
take anything else?" They're like, "No, just your drum set."
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, "What?"
That's so disappointing at a young age, you know?
Oh my God. Like, I really had this like memory that someone came into the house and just stole my drum set. It wasn't until later in life that I realized the truth.
Right. Right.
Yeah, man. So yeah, music was my first love, and when I connected with Eve, she was talking about the drums, and I started taking this drum class, um, djembe drum, and how I found the drum actually, the djembe was, and it was really interesting experience because we got to this place, this party. It was at a house, and they were gonna have a DJ. But driving up to it, I wanted to take the most like biggest, I don't know, should I say dump? Like my stomach, I was like, dude, this is I gotta go like now.
Hmm.
Like right now. And I remember I remember getting out of the car. I didn't even go inside the party. Like I was looking for a bathroom. Like I need a bathroom like right now.
Hmm.
And I remember seeing like this, it was like a lightning coming down. I think spirit sometimes gives you signs, like there's something huge coming,
Hmm.
right? And for me, like it's very corporal, like it's in my body. That's how I feel the gifts that are coming. So
Hmm.
this time it was like me needing to go use the toilet
Right.
and seeing this lightning in the sky. And then I find a Mexican restaurant, little hole in the wall, and I'm like knocking on their door. I'm like, "Hey, can I use the bathroom?" And I was like, "I gotta go now," and they let me use the bathroom. I come back. DJ's playing. There's this guy drumming in the corner with the djembe with the house music, and I was just like in awe of watching this. I'm like, wow, like the combination of the DJ and the raw natural drum like at the same time playing together. I was like, that's beautiful.
Hmm.
So I kept looking at the drummer. He comes up to me and he gives me his drum. He's like, "Here,
Hmm.
play it." Like he had it like strapped on.
Right.
So he like took it off and he puts it over me. He goes, "Here, play it." I'm like, "Wait, are you sure?" He goes, I said, "I don't know how to play." He goes, "Just feel it."
Ah.
And that's what I did. I started playing with the DJ and I'm like, "Dude, this is amazing. This is beautiful." Like
Hmm.
what an experience. So that's when I started to take these djembe classes. And Eve's birthday was coming up and I got all the drummers together. I created this invite, called it Drum for Love, because that's what I called Eve. I called her Love. So I
Hmm.
created this invite, Drum for Love. We're all going to come together and drum on the beach. And it's the birthday for my wife.
Hmm.
And they're like, and the drummers were like, but who are we? We don't, we're just beginners. We don't know how to do this, right? They had
Mm.
that fear.
Hmm. Right.
They had the thoughts, right?
Right.
Um, and I got a few of them to go out there, a few friends to go out there. And when we started drumming, this was a birthday celebration for Eve, Drum for Love. And we started doing it every week
Hmm.
because people started to gather, people started to come in. It was like a calling for people, community. Um, and there was a time where police tried to stop it. They said that you're disturbing the peace. Had this guy on one side, this other guy on the other side, the policeman in the middle. I'm on the across facing the policeman. And one guy tells the policeman, he goes, "You think they're disturbing the peace? They're creating peace."
Mm. I love
And
that.
this guy's like, "He's right, man. I would never would have talked to that dude if it wasn't for the drums."
Right.
Right. So that right there was like, me and Eve came home. We're like, we got to do more of this.
Hmm.
So it became an organization. It became something that brought people together. We did it here in the community in Long Beach. It was big, powerful medicine for the community because a lot of people came together. They found the drum. And in other words, they found their heart, right?
Right.
Just like I did, right? Like that drummer telling me, just feel it, right? Like that heartbeat, just go
Right.
with it. Um, so yeah, man, that was a very powerful experience because, like I said, it created community. And at that time, even I didn't have friends.
Mm.
It was just me and her,
Hmm.
right? So the drum created friendships, just like that young me that created connections with my physical movement, physical body by running and kicking the ball the furthest. Like the drum did that for us as a couple.
I love that.
And to this day, I mean, we still have gatherings because of that, that revolve around the drum.
Hmm.
And we've included obviously other modalities like breathing and different kind of sound frequencies and temescal. Um,
Can you talk a
yeah,
little bit about that? Can you talk a little bit about Temescal? What is Temescal for those that don't know, and just real layman's terms, like for somebody that doesn't have has never heard of it.
right. So if they haven't heard of the term temescal, you probably heard of the term sweat lodge.
Hmm.
Right. So different tribes, different cultures have different names for it depending on the culture. Um, the Native Americans obviously have the sweat lodge. I call it the Temescal, Nipe. There's different names for it.
Hmm.
Um, but um, but basically, it's like a sauna. It's a natural sauna, right?
Hmm.
Um, we still have that connection to the sauna. Like even as men, I go to the gym and I've met have some really interesting conversations in the sauna with men
For sure.
because
Same with
because
me.
because I feel like that environment opens men up
Hmm.
to be real, to be authentic,
Right.
to have these conversations, right? I've had these conversations with men in the sauna that probably I wouldn't have with them at Walmart.
Right. Right.
But because we're in the sauna and we're in this element of heat, of detoxification, of shedding those layers, it opens us up and allows us to connect. And that's what the Temescal does with intention, right?
Hmm.
So we heat up rocks, 52 rocks, which we call abuelitas,
Hmm.
and they all have an intention. So every time an abuelita comes in into the Temescal, it has an intention.
Hmm.
And then obviously it releases the heat, releases the vapors, and that creates a cleansing of the body, cleansing of the mind, cleansing of the spirit. And but yeah, it has what we call cuatro puertas, which are four doors,
Hmm.
which are like four rounds, and they vary from time. Could go anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes each door. Sometimes longer, sometimes less, but it's like I said, it's an opportunity to cleanse and purify and to connect with yourself.
And it's a deep prayer,
It's a
right?
very deep prayer. We sing songs.
Hmm.
We give people the opportunity to express themselves. Sometimes people just cry, which is fine.
Hmm.
Sometimes people just, they they laugh, they cry, they tell jokes, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
whatever comes up. But yeah, it's a good experience, powerful experience. For I don't, you know what? I stay away from saying the word healing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I went to this event the other day. I'm not going to take credit for this, but he said it's not about healing; it's about peeling,
Mm.
right? And I really resonated with that because I agree with that, right? It's we come into this world perfectly divine,
Mm-hmm.
right? And as we navigate through this world, we experience traumas. You know, we all have our different lives, different parenting, different experiences, and we develop layers, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
These layers that are also known as masks, right?
Or blockages for.
Or blockages, right?
Mhm.
That they cover our light, right? They dim our light. The light is
Mhm.
still there.
Mhm.
We are who we are,
Mhm.
right? It's like a piece of furniture that catches dust,
Right.
right? It's like the dust is not going to change that piece of furniture. That piece of furniture is still going to be what it is.
Right.
The dust doesn't make it anything different, you
Mhm.
know? So us as humans, I feel like we're like that, right? We have all these layers, the dust, right, of
Mhm.
that we have developed, and we identify with it.
Mhm.
We think we are those layers, but we're not.
Mhm.
So peeling off the layers, I feel like that's where the work comes in, right? To understand why we have these layers and put ourselves in a situation like a temescal, like a medicine journey, even something physical, even going on a run for 45 minutes,
Mhm.
right? You put yourself in this space where you connect, where you're present, and things come up,
Mhm.
right? And so, yeah, like it's about peeling, not
Mhm.
healing.
I like that. I like I like that. That's it's I haven't heard that before. So that's
Yeah,
yeah,
and
that's a
like I
powerful way to
said,
look at it.
I want to give the guy credit. His name's Michael. I went to his event in Glendale.
Mhm.
It was called Blast Off, and it was a sound experience. The sound facilitator was Torkim G, and but Michael was he talked about that it's about peeling and not healing because he was talking about his own life journey. So I want to give him credit for that.
Beautiful. So I'd love to hear also about your book, because I know your book has been a big part of your journey, and I think a lot of people would benefit from reading about it. Can you share a little bit about uh, what the book's about, what the principles are of it, those kind of things?
Yeah, so my involvement in sports in the sports world, like I said, was a big part of my life, big part of my journey. So when I was in Houston and that coach told me, put your foot down, and I'm reading this book on personal development, put your foot down. So I
Mm-hmm.
started writing this. So my book is made up of 8 maxims, 8 principles, 8 ideals. And the first one is ground, is to put your foot down. So my purpose, one of my purpose in life is to bring people back to their body
Mm-hmm.
and to help them understand that every movement can be a catalyst for change, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, for example, you're walking up the stairs. You're walking up the stairs. We've been conditioned to think that going up the stairs is just about moving our legs up, bringing that back leg to the top stair, and
Mm-hmm.
then following up with that other leg going forward,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's a conditioning. But if people understand that to come back to your body, the power, the connection comes from what's right underneath you. So that leg and that foot that's coming and making contact with that stair that's right underneath you, to have your presence there and allowing that opposite leg to come forward. So in essence, what you're doing, what I feel my book does with that first principle of ground is to reconnect people with that true essence, right? So we can reconnect with that essence, just like that coach told me, move like that 11-year-old boy,
Mm,
right? So we have that, but because of the conditioning, which has translated now, has carried over onto how we move our bodies. How we move our bodies has carried over onto how we live our lives, right? Because if we're just moving our legs forward without acknowledging that leg in the back, what we're doing is that, and this is how this is how the one of the principles came. I was running at the beach, and Spirit was telling me, when you understand that when your presence is here on that foot making contact with the ground, what's right underneath you, and you understand what happens with that opposite leg coming from the back to the front, right?
mm-hmm,
That leg that's in the back that's trailing, that's the past,
mm-hmm,
right? And when it comes forward, that's the future.
mm-hmm,
But your presence is not there. Your presence is what's right here right now, what's underneath you, and that's that leg that's coming down,
mm-hmm,
right? So your presence in the present moment does something to your past and your future.
mm-hmm,
There's something happening there, right? So we live our lives in the same way. We either are worried about the future and have anxiety, or have anxiety about the future, or still carry on our past to the present moment.
which is
So,
depression.
which is depression,
Mm-hmm,
correct? So, my book is about allowing people and opening up an opportunity for them to understand how much connection they have available,
mm-hmm,
even when they go on a walk, when they go on a jog, when they're moving, right? So, you can carry over that awareness to your daily life.
mm-hmm. So
Just
the first one's ground, and then what are the other seven?
the second one is gravity, which is fall forward, right? So when we are wanting to move our bodies forward faster when we're running in full sprint,
Mm-hmm,
we want to apply a forward lean, just about 3 to 5%.
mm-hmm,
So we go from a from here
mm-hmm,
to there,
mm-hmm,
right? That action in itself, with the intention of moving forward, with the knowledge of putting that foot down, having that understanding and knowing how to apply it, that lean
mm-hmm.
care is taking you forward.
Right.
You don't have to try to move forward.
Mm-hmm,
All you're doing is applying the lean while you're moving. While you're doing this movement, apply the lean, then you start going forward. So
mm-hmm,
if like you're bouncing on your feet,
mm-hmm,
standing up and you're bouncing, you're not leaning forward yet. You're just in a standing position. You're not going anywhere.
mm-hmm,
But as soon as you have the intention to go forward and you apply the lean, guess what? You're jogging now.
mm-hmm,
So you're basically just bouncing in place, but the only reason you're moving forward is because of your intention and that lean,
mm-hmm,
right? So what does that mean? That in order to move forward in life, we have to fall.
mm,
We have to fail,
mm-hmm.
right? We can't just take action here and not lean into it, right?
Them are running in place.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm,
So so in order to move forward in life, we have to lean into it. What
mm-hmm,
scares you?
mm-hmm,
What scares you, right? Lean into it. That big
mm-hmm.
rock.
Right, right,
Lean into it. Go
right.
towards it, right?
Mm-hmm,
So that's, and then the third principle is integrity.
mm-hmm,
To be whole and complete, right?
mm-hmm,
Something that's integral is whole and complete, right? So it's all about awareness to be whole and complete, right? Integrity is not just about doing what you said you would do. Integrity is about taking ownership of, your shortcomings, right?
mm-hmm,
Right. I might have said I wasn't going to do that, but I'm going to voice that, right? Oh, I didn't go to that event. I told that person I would go. You didn't go. That's not going is not about not having integrity. Having integrity is about calling up that person and say, look, this happened. I totally wanted to be there, right?
Mhm.
That's integrity. To be whole and complete, not have anything linger in your mind,
Mhm.
right? So integrity is the third one. Joy is the fourth one, obviously,
Mhm.
right? So that bounce that I'm talking about, right?
Mhm.
When you're bouncing up and down, when you're putting that foot down and you make contact with the ball of the foot on the ground and you bounce in place, and then you lean into it, you start moving forward, but you still keep that bounce. That's our pure essence. That's how children move.
Mhm.
That's why children love to bounce. They love jumpy houses, right? Because it ignites joy. It's
Who
part of their
doesn't?
essence.
Who
Who
doesn't?
doesn't? Who doesn't, right?
Right.
But we stop as adults, we stop bouncing.
Mhm.
We become rigid.
Mhm.
Right? What happened to that bounce, right? So you can apply that bounce when you walk, you can apply that bounce when you jog, right? So that's the fourth principle. So we have ground, gravity, integrity, joy, and then we have harmony.
Mhm.
um, I learned the power of harmony when I understood that in order to move my body with more speed, right?
Mhm.
I had to move my arm through the full range of motion, right? But it's so hard to move my arm through the full range of motion because it requires movement going back,
Mm.
right? So that's also a fear. That's
Mhm.
also a programming thinking, if my goal is to go forward, why am I going to waste time going back here?
Mhm. Mhm.
But if you understand that the body is an amazing creation,
Mhm.
movement is amazing, right? That if you fearfully cut that movement short, the opposite leg, the left leg, let's say this is the right arm, the
Mhm.
left leg, as soon as this stops, the leg stops.
Mhm.
It follows what this arm does,
Mhm.
right? So what happens is that now, because it's not going through that full range of motion, now it's not generating power, which it affects the stride length, right? So harmony is understanding that one part of a body has an effect on another part of the body. If this part of the body is injured, another part of the body is going to be compromised
Mhm.
because there's something going on here.
Right.
Something is going on here. The other Another part of the body is going to be compromised, and if that part of the body is now compromised, another part of the body is not compromised, right? So I work with teams, all kinds of real estate teams, sports teams, right? So if one player or one team member is being affected and is compromised, it affects the whole team.
Mhm.
It affects the harmony, the harmonious relationship of the whole team,
Mhm.
right? so
Absolutely.
so just having that, what do we have available every single day to understand that is our body,
Mhm.
right? That's how I understand it, right? I have my body, I have my family, my environment,
Mhm.
and I have that knowledge because of my movement in my body. That helped me understand the power of harmony,
Mhm.
right? If my wife is being compromised by something, she's going through something, it's affecting me. So
Absolutely.
let's talk about it, right? Let's clear this up.
Mhm.
If my son is being affected in some way, like I want to understand what's going on because he's a part of my team.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's harmony.
Mhm.
And then we have freedom. I kind of touched up on freedom. It's the power of going through the full range of motion,
Okay.
and overcoming that fear.
Mhm.
Um, and like I said, going back is really difficult, really challenging for athletes to do. Um, and that carries over onto life because sometimes we just want to go forward. We've been conditioned to think that everything is about going forward.
Mhm.
I want to get there, so I'm going to put on blinders and just focus on getting there,
Right.
right? And no, I'm not gonna wash the dishes, right? I don't have time. I don't have time to make my bed. I don't have time to spend time with my son. I don't have time because I'm goal oriented. I need to get there, right?
Mhm.
But my body, my movement has taught me that it's much more powerful to go through the full range of motion, even if it feels like you're moving slower, because
Mm,
that movement of going through the full range of motion does feel slower,
mm-hmm.
but it gives you better results. And it
Right.
also gives you opportunity to overcome that fear, makes you more confident. And in that confidence, you understand, like, you carry over that confidence. I understood that when I was sprinting. I'm like, oh, this feels slow, but I'm getting better times.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I carried over that experience into my environment and say, I have this goal, and um, I'm still going to go through the full range of motion of what's in front of me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
What's right here in front of me, and go through the full range of motion. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Keep my room clean. Right. Keep my house clean. Take care of my car. It needs an oil change. Right. Like
Mm-hmm.
all those earthly things that we sometimes think that they don't have a purpose, or that we're wasting time on that, but they really do. Because if you understand the concept of going through the full range of motion, I mean, that's a powerful concept that we can all embody, that we all have available every single moment.
Absolutely.
And
So,
then the seventh principle is now, and then the last one is action,
okay. Love
inspired
it.
action.
Inspired action. Yeah, there's a difference there.
Because many times, and I put it last because it came last, because I think sometimes we take action, but we don't have that grounding, or
Like the
that or
foundation.
that that foundation
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And I feel like with anything, the foundation is a huge part of our growth,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, to have that foundation. The foundation is, who sees the foundation? Nobody sees the foundation. Everybody sees the beautiful house,
Right.
right? So we all want a beautiful house, but we don't focus on the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
We all want to have a beautiful house, right? So, I'm a big proponent for focus on the foundation,
Mm-hmm.
because you may, even if you create a beautiful house on top of a strong foundation, even if it crumbles, you're good,
Mm-hmm.
because your foundation's strong,
Right.
right? Your foundation is there.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have a beautiful house and a weak foundation, what do we have?
Yeah, not much. The house is gonna crumble very quickly, and then you'll be left with nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, thank you for sharing that. Remind me of the name of your book,
the Hart Method,
The Hart Method, Hart. And
HART. Yeah.
where can people find this? Amazon?
Yeah, so it's on Amazon. You can also visit my website, armandohart.com. That's
Mhm.
ARMANDOHART.com. It's also available there, but Amazon.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And
And we'll drop all those links in the description for people to check out.
great.
And I just wanted we're coming up on the end here, but I wanted to have you share about this camp that you're doing for the teenagers.
Yeah, so this summer I'm hosting a summer camp for teenage boys ages 14 to 18. And it's part of my purpose, right? Growing up, I feel that having a mentor, or just having a coach, or just having someone else to share some insight, because I've had an experience like that coach telling me put my foot down, like that was one of them, right? So
Hmm.
it really changed the course of my life. Another one was when I was 14. I was playing soccer in Hawaii. I was a part of a soccer club, and one of the coaches was with me. We all had gone to dinner. We're walking on the sidewalk. I finished my drink in a plastic cup,
Hmm.
and I threw it on the sidewalk
Mm.
without thinking anything.
Hmm.
It was natural. I don't know what, it just came natural to me. And he pulls me aside and he says, "Why did you do that?" And I was like, "Did what?" He goes, "Why did you throw the cup on the sidewalk like that?" And I said, "Because I was done." He goes, "Oh." He goes, "Well," and he told me the importance of caring for our environment
Hmm.
and keeping our environment clean. And he goes, I want you to go over to where you dropped that cup and find a better place for it.
Hmm.
That's all he said.
I like that. I like that. He was
Yeah.
very calm, and
Very calm.
he
Very
he
calm.
gave you the prompts to actually figure
Yeah.
it out. You know, that I really like
Figure it
the way
out.
he addressed that. Yeah.
He didn't say, "Hey, throw that in the trash," or what are you? Nothing. He pulled me aside, made eye contact with me, inquired, asked me why I did
Hmm.
that, and then also left it open and said, "Find a better place for it."
Hmm.
Right. So just by saying "find a better place for it" told me that what I chose to do wasn't the best place for
Right.
it.
Right.
you know, just with that. So that in itself changed the course of my life and the choices that I made
Hmm.
because I understood that where else in my life am I just tossing, right? Am I
Mm.
just throwing without any awareness?
Hmm.
So, like I said, you know, children are closer to that divinity because they have less layers. We as adults have more layers because we have lived a longer life.
Hmm.
So, children are closer to that.
For sure.
But and also they have a lot of there's a lot going on in our youth these days regards to social media and the challenges and the temptations and all this other stuff and the what's going on in the political world, the world level. So there's a lot, and if I can just give them the space with doing some breathing practices, some drumming, some playing music, having fun, moving the body, exercising, conscious movement. And then, I plan to do the initiation part with the Temescal, the sweat lodge at the end as part of their initiation.
Mm.
Parents can come and join at our home, bring some, bring some food, potluck together, commune together, celebrate their initiation. And if they can take just one insight with them, like I received,
Hmm.
that's plenty for me. That's
Hmm.
huge because it's really going to affect the choices they make, the choices they don't make. So yeah, that's what I plan to do. It's going to be I'm going to do two different weeks.
Okay.
Make it available for parents because I know a lot of is going on in summertime and traveling and all these other camps that they have available. But I want to provide something different.
So what
Something that
weeks is it
has
going to be?
it's going to be in June, late June and early July.
Okay.
So I'll put out the exact dates um, on those two camps,
Okay.
and it's gonna be half day, 9 to 1 p.m. And we're gonna have lunch from 1 to 2.
Okay.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful. And this is going to be in LA, right?
It's gonna be in L.A. County. The exact location is Long Beach, California.
Okay. Beautiful.
Yep. So the beautiful thing about Long Beach is that we're right in the middle of Orange County and L.A.
Hmm.
We're in
Right in
between.
between. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So right in between Disneyland and what's another thing in LA that people go to? Universal Studios.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're right in the middle.
Cool. Cool. Well, Armando, thank you so much for sharing your journey, for sharing about your book, about all the teachings in your life, and for the ways that you show up for the community and for the world. So it's been an honor to have you on, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
All right. Until
All
next
right.
time.
Next time.